Hello, everybody. I'm Phil Brandt, President and CEO of AIM Employers Association, and welcome to This Week at Work.
This Week at Work is the only show about the workplace that offers you front row seats and a microphone featuring experts in human resources and employment law to bring you practical, timely, and accurate insights so you can more effectively lead your organization. It's Thursday, April 4th, episode 273. Today, over the past 4 years, recruiters and HR teams have faced unprecedented challenges, from the pandemic shutdowns to the rapid adoption of remote work, talent shortages, and, of course, the rise of AI technology. Clearly, this has placed immense strain on even the most seasoned HR specialists. Well, Randy Sims, an expert in executive search, joins us to explore the nuances of modern recruitment methods and uncover how employers can leverage innovation to thrive in today's competitive market. Plus, we hear from our lawyer on the clock, and as always, we offer you a mic. All this and more on This Week at Work.
All right, welcome back, everyone. And we are almost to the end of March Madness. Bert, I got to ask, how is your bracket going? And remind us of the clever naming convention you had.
All right, so for my brackets, plural this year, let me tell you, at one point in the bracket, when it was the round of 32, down to the round of 32, there were 22 million brackets entered in ESPN's pool this year. And I was in the top 99.9%. I was bracket number 5,000 something out of 22 million. And my team's name this year was Burton Never Learns. And the reason I never learned is because I went to University of Arizona, and when it comes to the bracket, every time I picked them to win it all, and I really once again thought they were going to win it all this year, and they got booted out in the round of 16. And so again, I never learned. My bracket's out. I'm done, and that's the end of it. I'm done watching.
You know, they have a name for someone like you, and it's called Homer.
Yep.
You know.
I can't help it.
I get it.
Dope.
I'm that same way about our Blues and our Cardinals. I got to put up our Cardinals little banner here after today's program. Today is opening day, and I every year it starts, and I'm like, hey, I think the Cardinals got a shot. I think the Blues are still going to make the playoffs. We're going to have Coach Craig Berube on the program coming up in a week or two, and he's going to be a keynote speaker for us at our leadership conference, and I feel that same way. And the 1 year I thought for sure that the Blues would not make the playoffs and wouldn't make a difference. They won the Stanley Cup, so maybe you just got to change your thinking.
Yeah, I need to do something.
Yeah, Bert, let me introduce you to Randy Sims. Randy is well known with many of our members, does a lot of good work for us in the space of recruiting. Good morning, Randy. How are you doing?
Doing great. Good morning, Phil. Thanks for having me on again.
I'm happy to have you here. I'm looking forward to some conversation and getting some insights into the recruiting marketplace and what's going on, and really hear from you, that person that's really stuck in the middle, right? You're in between employers and the people they're looking to hire, and you're kind of hearing the confidential conversations on both sides of that. So maybe you'll give us a little bit of peek inside that world of what that's like. But before we do that, let's kick off some poll questions. Today's poll question is, if you were to take a call from a recruiter today, what would be most important to you? And let's assume that you're looking for a job. Some of you say, I'm not going to take a call because I'm not looking for a job. But what would be most important to you? That's a good question, Nick. Thank you. And what does your hiring situation look like for the remainder of 2024? Are you adding staff? Are you downsizing? Are you planning to stay the status quo? So that would be some good insight to have for sure. We remember what our survey results told us, that almost 98% of employers were going to be either replacing or adding staff as they approached 2024. But I'm curious what we see 1 quarter into the year of 2024. All right, Bert, are you ready to kick us off with the fastest 6 minutes of Lawyer on the Clock?
I'm ready as always. Phil, Nick, go ahead and pull that lever.
All right.
All right, it's time to look into what's trending in employment law. Lawyer, you're on the clock.
Phil, we're going to have a little bit of fun with Lawyer on the Clock today, but let's get to the serious part first. The first one I want to talk about is a settlement of a case, and this serves as a reminder to all employers out there. Amazon workers at two warehouses in Kentucky and Pennsylvania at their fulfillment centers, 21,800 Amazon workers settled a case with Amazon for $7 million involving time spent in security screenings that Amazon was not paying to their employees.
Security screenings mean what, Bert?
Meaning that the time that they spent waiting in line when they either came into the facility, or more importantly, when they exited the facility, the time spent waiting in line for that and actually going through the security screening to make sure that the employees were not stealing from the Amazon warehouse.
So Amazon was stealing wages, making sure their employees were not stealing their goods.
Yes, in essence, that's kind of what the case boiled down to. They did settle the case with these 21,800 workers. Each worker will get about $130 on average out of the settlement. The deal, of course, provides for nearly $2.4 million in attorney's fees, which is about 33% of the settlement fund. But the bottom line here
the lawyers always win, Bert. We know that's the case, right? I mean, that's why you picked your profession. I love it. Yeah.
Yes, of course. And the interesting thing here is this does serve as a reminder to employers that if you are putting your employees through security screening at work, that is time that's compensable. And so the case law is very clear on that.
All right. So security screening, but let's just expand this a little bit and help out our listeners, because it's not unusual. I've seen it, particularly when I was working in very large manufacturing environments. I might have a line of 30 or 40 people waiting to clock out, right? To scan their badge, punch a time clock, all the methods that are used today. And that might take, 5 or 6 minutes for everyone, 7, 8 minutes to go through the line, depending on, where you're at in the line and what time of the day, what shift. Does this apply to that? I haven't clocked out yet. I'm in line. Am I still on the clock?
Yes, and that's interesting because clocking out, of course, that solves the problem for the employees. That's in their favor because they're actually on the clock. They're waiting in line to clock out. If they're waiting in line to clock in, that gets a little bit more difficult. But you do have the argument that that technically that time should be compensable, but if it kind of washes out at the beginning and the end of the day, then the employer should be fine. But they have to have documentation and proof to be able to support that.
Right. Yeah, because you do get it on both sides, right?
Correct.
I mean, people usually, the line often is a little bit longer, at one time of the day or another, depending on, people coming or going and what's happening. But I know the line starts early.
Yes.
When you're clocking out, and it starts late when you're clocking in.
Yes, for sure.
Yeah. So, any good practices that we need to be aware of for something like that? Is there a standard grace period? I know a lot of timekeeping systems will say, well, we track time every 6 minutes, that type of thing. And
there's a rounding up and a rounding down rule, in 15-minute increments, but by and large, most systems are really able to track to the minute, a second these days, and so rounding isn't as much of an issue as it used to be. But if you are using rounding, make sure you're doing it carefully and getting legal advice on how to do that properly.
And I think there's probably a difference between I'm just waiting in line to clock and leave versus I'm actually waiting for my employer to screen me before I can go get in line to leave.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You're taking up my time, Phil.
Hey, all right. I'm sorry,
All
Bert.
right.
What else you
All
got
right.
for me?
No wonder I go over all the time. So another one I want to, this one also serves as an interesting reminder to employers. The First Circuit Court of Appeals, the Federal First Circuit Court of Appeals, heard oral argument yesterday on a case involving Trader Joe's. I thought this one was really interesting because in that case, an 80-year-old former Trader Joe's employee who was fired from Trader Joe's after she was caught buying beer for her underage grandson. Unpack
Oh,
that one
yeah.
for me,
Tell
Phil.
us
Yes.
more. Yeah, tell us
All right.
more.
So in this particular case, the Trader Joe's fired this employee, this 80-year-old grandmother, for violating its alcohol policy when she let her grandson, who also worked at the store, pick out a 4-pack of beer and then purchase the beer for him so he could drink it during dinner after their shifts ended. And,
Okay.
it seems like that would be something that would be a violation of their policies and their rules and could reasonably get an employee fired, wouldn't you say?
I would think that should be a violation if it
Yeah.
was known that, hey, you are purchasing this to support underage drinking,
Yeah,
regardless if it
exactly.
was family or not. Randy, you got an
Exactly.
opinion on that? Randy?
Yeah, I'm here. I mean, it seems like it's definitely would be a legal issue. I was actually going to ask Bert when he mentioned Pennsylvania, but I'll take it offline. When I found out the other day that I was only getting half the potato chips in my potato chip bag, I heard on the news and I went in, opened it up, and it was true. And now I've been furious ever since then. But I won't divert into my anger on that law that's going through the courts right now. No, I think that's a touchy subject. I mean,
So I assume, yeah, I
you're,
assume it's
you're
illegal for me to buy alcohol from a kid. I remember when I was a kid, it was not unusual to stand outside the liquor store or convenience store and ask some person that looked approachable if they would, hey, buy a 6-pack of beer for me and my buddies, right? That was illegal for them to buy that and serve to a minor. So I would assume yes.
The grandson, she's probably just getting the grandson back. Grandson probably bought the grandmother some marijuana. So,
Well, there. Well, if he's underage, he's probably underage for both, and I don't know the
Nick,
rule in
Nick, there
Pennsylvania.
you go, talking about the wacky tobacco again.
Yeah,
So,
we got to keep our
well,
eye
so
on Nick.
so anyway, this case was really interesting because she did in fact get fired for this. She then lost her case on summary judgment at the trial court. And then, like I said, there was oral argument that was conducted yesterday on this case. And two of the judges during oral argument pointed out a very significant weakness in Trader Joe's case. And that's where it's important that we as employers remember that we treat our employees, Phil, you're gonna know that I say this over and over again, that we treat them what?
All equally and fairly, yes.
Consistently and fairly. That's exactly right. Consistency and fairness. And what the court pointed out from the briefing and made a big stink about this during oral argument, that the store records showed that 6 employees who were under 40 years of age were given warnings for violations of the exact same policy when they failed to check a minor's identification and sold the person alcohol. And the trial judge found that those examples weren't an apples to apples comparison because the employee in this case had knowingly violated the employees while the other employees were examples of negligence. The Court of Appeals, again, and 2 of these judges, it surprised me a little bit, but they said no. They think that this is a violation of the exact same policy, even though the grandma here knowingly did it. Kind of gets to your point, Phil, about knowingly doing something versus the employees at the checkout line who just simply failed to check IDs. So we'll have to see how this case turns out, because I do think that there's a fairly significant factual distinction here, but it just goes to show employers the dangers of not applying things 100% consistently.
Yeah, that's a good one actually.
Yeah.
I like that angle, right? It's like, oh, I just happened to forget to check your ID, and maybe you happen to be my grandchild. And other one is I'm actively, letting you even select the booze that you want and then buying it for you.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Oh, we have time for one more.
Sure. One more quick one.
All right. Quick one. This one is the one I wanted to have some fun with you on, but
Go
you've
for it.
again eaten my time here. But
We're just
so
gonna have to
so
get you your own show, Bert. That's all I can tell you.
so the this one I'm doing a presentation in a few weeks at my firm's National Workplace Strategy Seminar on recording in the workplace, employees making recordings of their employer in the workplace, whether video or audio. And so I decided, Phil, based on your advice, to take advantage of all of this artificial intelligence out there. And so I wanted to know a question rather than having to go research it on my own. I wanted to know the answer to the question. So I typed in to one of these search engines that you use all the time on a daily basis to help you run AIM.
All
And I
right, I
typed
got it
in,
up right here.
all
All
right,
right, pull it.
I typed,
What's the question?
I typed in the question, what was the first workplace recording case that made it legal for employees to record at work in the United States? Okay,
Yeah.
that's the question. Very simple. I just wanted to know what was the first case that held that it is lawful for employees to make recordings at work, despite employer policies that have that say that it's a violation of company rules to make recordings at work. And
Okay.
in the search engine, this Chat GPT said the legality of, I'm going to give you the answer here, what it gave me, the legality of employees making recordings at work in the US has evolved over time through various legal cases and legislative actions. There isn't a single quote unquote first workplace recording case that definitively established the legality of such actions nationwide. All right, then this one gets really interesting. However, one notable case that contributed to shaping the legal landscape regarding workplace recordings is the case of Kearney versus Salomon Smith Barney. In 2004, the Second Circuit Court of Appeals ruled in favor of Kearney, a former employee of Salomon Smith Barney, now part of Citigroup, who had recorded conversations with her supervisors regarding alleged discriminatory practices. The court held that Kearney's surreptitious recordings were not in violation of the federal wiretap laws because they were made for the purpose of documenting evidence of discrimination. Sounds like
Okay.
a great answer to my question, doesn't it?
Well, it sounds like a good answer, but I do know enough to know you're going to have to fact check that.
Uh-huh. Well,
Okay.
and it's a good thing I did, because I would love to have just been able to simply cite that case and put it into my presentation and go tell several hundred people that I'll be talking to that this is the case on the issue. So I did. I went and looked up the case of Kearney versus Salomon Smith Barney from 2004 from the Second Circuit that supposedly held that the employee was not in violation of a federal wiretap law because she was recording to document evidence of discrimination. And guess what I found, Phil?
Well, I'm going to guess you found the opposite.
I found the opposite. I found found this case, and what this case was involved with was an appeal by two people who filed a class action against their company. And what it had to do was that the employees were accused of recording telephone calls between themselves and their Atlanta-based stockbrokers without the consent of the stockbrokers. And what they were doing is they were trying to get information about the conduct of the company. These were not former employees.
Okay.
And so what this case really had to do with was a jurisdictional dispute on which states' laws applied to the people who were making the recordings of these telephone calls. And there was a dispute between Atlanta and California law on this issue. It had nothing to do with employment whatsoever. But it was really interesting because that result that came up for me, it sounded confident.
It was convincing, was it not? Yeah.
It was convincing, and it was right on point for me. The problem is that it was literally made up.
Yeah, well, I think that is one of our challenges at this point is to make sure we we fact check our chat GPT responses, particularly when we're looking at it from a legal perspective. And Bert, if you read the rest of that, it always says it's not providing legal advice.
Correct, it does.
Check and do those things. So let's not get lazy in the practice over there at Ogletree Deacons. And I know you won't. That's why we love you the best, and you do a great job. But that's a good reminder to all of us, because I do promote using Chat GPT. I use it every single day, but I am careful, and I do try to fact check things that are meaningful in the way that you just used it there.
Yeah, and I would say to people, I know a lot of people use it for checking, for letter writing and maybe even policy drafting. And, I would suggest to people that maybe it's a good starting point to get some ideas of what the issues are that should be addressed in a letter, or issues that should be addressed in a particular policy. But it is not a substitute for good HR practices, good HR advice, or good legal advice.
There you go. Not yet anyway. All right. So sounds like someone defending their position a little bit. Okay. Well done, Bert. I love it.
Thanks, Phil.
Hey, let's move on, if we can, to you, Randy Sims. Nick, let's do that Philbert's form you got. I know it's a really good one, but I want to bring that up. I think it's still relevant next week. And let's get on to a conversation with you, Randy. Good morning again. Welcome, and thanks for joining the program. Randy, you do a lot of really good work for AIM, and you've been doing that, I know, for around 15 years now over at SimSearch. And in my opinion, you do one thing better than many recruiters I've ever worked with in my career, and that is why I put this on the sign right back here. And you really do take a lot of pride in finding the right person versus finding a person. And I know some of the difficulties that we've had in searches over the years for employers to find the right people with the right culture and the right fit. And in today's world, we're often just trying to find a warm body. So give us maybe a look on the in-between role that you play between employers and candidates when you're out searching today. What is it that that you're discovering that really makes finding the right person difficult?
Well, yeah, I think the interesting thing is, for, I guess, close to 30 years now, I've been inside the heads of both the candidates and the hiring managers. So
I've been for like 200 some episodes inside the head of Bert Garland here, and it is scary. It is really scary.
Yeah,
I can't get rid of them, Randy. I can't get rid of them.
But it is, we debrief with the candidate after interview. We debrief with the hiring manager after the interview. We know expectations before the interviews. One of the things that we do on the side of the hiring team is when we do our kickoff call, our blueprint call, we have basically every stakeholder that we can possibly get on that call, making sure and telling us, what they want, what are the must-haves, what are the things that are the most important. And then we, like you and I were talking before the show, Phil, we really have to take our team now a much more consultative approach. Sometimes those aren't easy conversations. If a company hasn't done a compensation survey for 5 years, people aren't paying the same amount for a house or a car or clothing or food in 5 years, so why should they be getting paid a salary for 5 years? So we get the team on there. We walk them through what we're seeing in the marketplace, make sure that we have really the hot buttons to be able to sell the organization, which I would encourage everyone to have a list of those. It's interesting. A lot of companies don't have those. When we ask them, what are some great things that we can sell to the potential candidate to get them to leave where they are now and come to you. Was on a call yesterday with a client, and we just happened to bring up, we got your benefits from last year's, anything changed for this year? And they're like, yeah, we just shifted. Now everyone's eligible for benefits from day one. It's like, that's huge. That's a big deal. You need to get that stuff out there. But yeah, it's really a matter of looking at what's important to the candidates, which we have our finger on the pulse on that, and being able to convey that information to the hiring managers. And sometimes it's just not practical what they're looking for in this market, to be honest.
So most of the positions that you're recruiting for, you're really high-end technical positions, engineering, project management, leadership type roles,
Yeah,
and so on. So what is it that, you talk to hundreds of candidates. What is it that these candidates are telling you? Because you're seeking out the candidate that's not really applying for jobs, right? Employers have already posted, they've already gone through the process of making it known that they have a job opening, and they go, you know what, this is a hard to fill, difficult to fill job. We need some assistance. Boom, lands Randy Sims and SimSearch, and they're here to help you. And you're in that conversation. What are candidates telling you? These are must-haves for me, or I'm not going to leave my employer.
Yeah, candidates, and it's all levels, and it's all levels of desires. We just filled a CFO position for AIM last week, and the same questions were coming out of these, individuals that come out of more mid-level management. First question right now before money is, tell me where am I going to be working? Am I going to be working from home 100% of the time? Is there a hybrid schedule, or are they requiring people to be in office, 100% of the time? And friend of mine a long time ago when all this started, he said, it's really easy to get the toothpaste out of the tube, but it's really hard to get it back in. And when people get used to working from home, and feel that their productivity is just as strong and they can have a better work-life balance, it's going to take a lot to get them back in. Sometimes it's not even $20,000 or $30,000 in an increase in salary. They won't budge, but it's salary, and it's where you're going to work, what type of a work situation, hybrid, so forth. Those are the top two questions out of the candidate's mouth first. And you're right, we're calling them, we're the more the old-fashioned headhunters, using all the modern day technology to find them. We're not posting on job boards and so forth. So, but those are the things that right now have overtaken a lot of other ththings in the past, like career path and so forth.
Yeah, and I'm looking at one of the surveys that we recently done on this topic. That the headline here is "Companies Allowing Remote/Hybrid Work" in a survey that we did, and we had a total of 122 respondents on this. So that's a pretty good group of respondents, and 61, basically 61 and a half said yes, they allow hybrid work, right? So you're going to say, well, they do allow a hybrid environment. I'm going to guess their next question is, tell me about that hybrid work. What does that mean? However, I was really still surprised to see that 38.5% said no, they don't allow remote or hybrid work at all. So to be almost at 40% of the workforce not allowing it at all, that's a little bit shocking in today's world, because I'm not a fan of it. I do not like it. And anyone that knows me knows that. But I allow it because I think it's necessary to have the candidates and the workforce that I need to be effective. So when a candidate's talking to you about that, all right, we got hybrid work, let's put that off to the side. What's the next barrier that's getting in the way?
It's compensation. And it's one of the things when we do a retained search for AIM is that we now feel that is so important, that AIM includes a compensation study along with the search, and as well as background checks too. But that is a great head start to get off, the beginning of the search and know, oh my gosh, I am $10,000 behind the same company that's, same size. It's just down the road from us. No wonder we're been struggling for the last 3 years. And whether it's AIM, which that's what we use, but you've got to find out where you are in the marketplace, or you're just going to be spinning your wheels and wondering why you're not getting that position filled for 6 months. It has to be competitive. Something has to give.
And so when I hear that, and I know, yes, we will do that compensation analysis and a market pricing for a particular job to help an employer. And the reason we started doing that and where we see the challenge is a lot of times the person they're replacing is someone who's been with them for a while, right? Let's say they've spent the last 20 or 30 years with that person. That person fits their culture. The person has some skills and maybe doesn't have some of the things they would like to have going forward, but they're basically settled in that role and they're not going to leave. And then the person retires. And they go out to the marketplace and they find that something they haven't had to worry about is market pricing that particular job, very low risk of someone leaving, and they just find that they're out of whack, and that's creating havoc on internal equity. And our comp expert, Mikey Mack, is talking about all of a sudden we're bringing in a much, let's say a much younger person, because they're replacing the person who retired, somebody who's got different expectations around working from home or working remotely, a person who has different expectations around what the benefits are they're looking for. And it's really causing a lot of angst amongst the employer. So when you're in that spot and you're trying to build that bridge, you're getting the job often because they've already discovered that, right? They
Right.
weren't able to get the
Right.
candidates.
Right.
Yeah.
And
So
I can add to your point on that, Bill. And then when they want to replace that person, oftentimes they find, well, maybe this is a way we can save a little bit on our payroll budget line. So, that person had been here for, like you said, 20, 30 years, or making 150,000. We want all those same skills, but let's hire somebody at 130,000. Well, why are a lot of people not downsizing their houses right now, right? If they sell their house, they can't find something for the same price as their house, even that's smaller. Or it's the same thing, I bought this car 5 years ago. Now I want a new Jeep Cherokee, but I want it the same price as I had it, last year or 3 or 4
you bought
years.
a
It's
car
the same
5 years ago? I'm still driving.
no, I was just using that as an example.
Oh, okay.
I bicycle
I want to
everywhere.
make sure we're not paying you too
Yeah.
much, Randy,
No,
if you're able
no,
to
I
buy
take-
new cars.
I walk or take the bike because you don't pay me enough. But
Okay.
but you have to stay in touch with what's going on in the market with everything else, and it really is the same. It's a candidate you're not going to find for less than you did 3 years ago with all the same skills, just like anything else that we're, as consumers, purchasing in the market.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, we like to take a look at our poll results when we have time, and we're going to take an extra minute and do that. Nick, can you pull up the poll results for us?
There you go, sir. I think it's fallen right in line of what you guys are talking about. As far as if you were to take a call from a recruiter today, what would be the most important thing to you? Our top answer is salary/total compensation at 55%, and then you have hybrid work schedule at 44%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that hybrid work schedule gets it comes in words that are disguised sometimes in workplace flexibility, work-life balance. These are words that sometimes help us identify a hybrid work schedule, and compensation. I like thinking about one reason why I wouldn't move to a new home today is I do not want to pay a higher interest rate. Right. I mean, I got golden handcuffs on me with the interest rate that I have, and there's no way I'm going to go out and pay today's interest rate, even though I would like to downsize now that all my kids are out of the house.
Now, Phil, did you just place a vote while we were talking? Because what came in here is 100% office work schedule. Just came in, so late.
Well, there you go. Yeah,
This feels a vote. Yeah.
I'm in the background, putting some of that in there, Nick. Of course, I'm going to participate in our survey, but I like it for all the reasons that this survey here talks about what makes hybrid and remote work difficult. So that same survey I just reflected upon a minute ago says, what are the challenges with remote/hybrid work arrangements, right? 53.85% of the respondents said maintaining company culture. And, culture within an organization is strategically important. It's critical to how well an operation can run. 43% said managing employee performance, and we talk about performance management in those things all the time. And another 61% said maintaining team cohesion. And that, when you're talking about maintaining the functionality of the team, company culture, and work performance, I mean, that's what, our listeners are trying to manage every single day while they're being consistent. Bert would say, while we're being consistent and fair in that process. Things like addressing technology and ensuring data security are really low. I mean, both of those are less than 25% of the concerns. So interesting results there. Go ahead, Randy.
I was just going to add to your consistency piece, and we hear this a lot. You may be shocked, but we're talking to the vice president or the hiring manager, and they say we are 100% in office. This person will report to me. Now, I do want to let you know I work 2 or 3 days at least from home. I'm like, wait a second.
For the goose, yeah.
And that does, and just as you mentioned, look what that's going to do to the culture. The person that they're going to be collaborating with and setting up the, what the schedules are like. They have to be there Monday through Friday, every hour of the day. But I'm only going to be there maybe half the time because whatever, I live 45 minutes away. And so when there's that lack of consistency, that really does have an impact on what the culture is.
Randy,
Right.
I refer to that one as the rules for thee and not for me
Right.
type of attitude in the workplace, and that all that does is breed discontent.
Well,
See it a lot.
I don't know. I think I raised my kids with that rule, Bert. But I'm not
That's why they're also
necessarily saying it was
discontent.
effective.
That's why they're so discontent with you, Phil.
Absolutely. No, I like that. The rules for thee and not for me, or do as I say, not as I do. All right. Randy, thank you for joining us. And I do appreciate all the good work you and your team does over at SimSearch. Fantastic. If you do have a difficult to fill job, reach out to us, let us know. We'll put you in conversation with Randy, and he'll tell you, how difficult he thinks that will be or not. And it's not that every job is difficult. We fill a lot of these very quickly, but sometimes we're not in the shape we need to be when we start that search, and we have to shore some things up. As always, Bert, thank you very much. Randy, you all take care. Let's go out and let's be good to somebody. Goodbye.
Yeah, go Cards.
Thank you once again for tuning in to This Week at Work. If you enjoy the show, please share it with your colleagues, forward our invites, share the link, aimea.org/This Week at Work, or follow or subscribe wherever you get your news and entertainment. LinkedIn, YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, we're everywhere you are. Don't forget you can be part of the show. Send your questions and comments anytime to info@thisweek.work. We'll see you next week, 7:30 a.m. Central Time, when we discuss what's happening this week at work.